Going on, everyone? Happy Sunday. Um, as everybody knows, I've been going through some things, and um, I've had a lot of thoughts about a lot of different things going on in my life right now. A lot of reflecting, a lot of reevaluating certain things. Um, a lot of self-discovery. Um, and just a lot of thinking. Um, the biggest thing that I feel like has been the focal point of a lot of things that I've been feeling and talking about has been forgiveness. Um, I've been trying to figure out ways on how to forgive certain things. I've been trying to figure out ways on what's the best way to forgive. I tried doing research. I've tried watching videos. I've tried doing everything that I can. I've tried praying on it, and it's hard. But I was able to come across a series, a church service series. Shout out to Pastor Michael Todd from Transformation Church. He has a whole 10-week series that I've been watching so far about forgiveness, the different steps of forgiveness, the different practices, the different principles, and applications of forgiveness and everything like that. So shout out to him. And it's kind of helped me understand things a little bit better. And it kind of helped change how I view forgiveness, in a sense. First off, my definition of forgiveness has always been being able to accept a situation for what it is, being able to acknowledge the pain that comes with it, and being able to look at the person that hurt you or did you wrong and accept that they are human and that they are allowed to make mistakes. So I don't look at forgiveness as a way of excusing somebody for their behavior. I look at forgiveness as a way of understanding and being able to accept that, yeah, this happened, but I'm not going to let it cloud my view on what it means to be a human being. And it also kind of helps us understand ourselves a little bit better too. Because I feel like if we can understand that everybody makes mistakes, and if we can understand that whatever a choice somebody made hurt us, it kind of helps us acknowledge that, you know what, they did make a mistake. Then it's almost as if we look at somebody and we are holding anger, which everybody's entitled to feeling angry and upset and victimized and anything of the sort when it comes down to being hurt. And when it comes down to forgiveness, it's hard to really accept that those feelings still exist, and it's hard to kind of push those feelings to the side. But if we look at forgiveness in a sense that we can't forgive them because we can't sit here and excuse them for that, then we have to also take that into consideration when we look at ourselves and look at the mistakes that we made. Can I be excused for the things that I did too? the lies that I told, the secrets that I kept, the hurt that I caused, the deception, the manipulation, stuff like that. If I look at somebody who hurt me, or if you look at somebody who hurt you, then can you look at them the same way that you would be able to look at yourself? Because it's not fair to condemn somebody else for what they did, but then excuse yourself for what it is that you did as well. Now, let's be fair. Not everybody's actions are equal. Some may be worse than others, and that is true. It is also true that forgiveness comes at a price. And it's also true that forgiveness is a process. But the thing that I've realized is how I've said in one of my last videos, it's all about the perspective. If we want to be able to be forgiven, we should be able to forgive somebody else. If we want to have a second chance at forgiveness, then we should be able to give somebody else a second chance at forgiveness as well. Now, like I said, it's not easy. It's a process. It's hard. And it costs. But let's look at it from a logical, biblical standpoint. The one thing that God says in the Bible over and over and over and over and over and over again, no matter what it is, has always been to forgive. Forgive those who have sinned against you, for you have already been forgiven. So it is our calling to forgive those as God already forgave us. So if you look at it from that standpoint, right? God forgave us for every sin that we made and every sin that we would ever make. That was the cost. Jesus dying on the cross was the cost. He gave up his wants, his desires, his life to forgive everyone in this earth for the sins that they committed and the sins that they would commit, because Jesus and God knows that it doesn't matter how many times or how many things that are done, no matter how many times somebody's being forgiven, that they will fail. So it's not the action, it's the intent behind it and the intent that comes after. Jesus said, forgive and believe that you are forgiven, to go and lead a life free of sin after being forgiven. So it's not a matter of being forgiven. It's a matter of what you do with forgiveness that matters, because once you are forgiven, how you go about it is what makes the difference. Do you continue to sin, or do you continue to live with forgiveness, knowing that you are forgiven and living life knowing and giving that forgiveness because it was given to you? So then it gets me thinking from a more earthly standpoint. Now that's biblical. We're talking about God and Jesus and faith and everything like that. Jesus is perfect. Jesus never made a mistake. Jesus was clean of sin. The only time that he dirtied his name, in a sense, was when he took on the world's sins and died for us. That was the ultimate sacrifice that anybody could ever make. Let me ask a question. Would you die for somebody who sinned against you? Would you die for somebody who offended you? Would you take the blame for something that you didn't do for somebody else just because? 9 times out of 10, I'm going to say the majority of us are going to say, hell no. No. But Jesus did, right? Jesus didn't know me or you. He knew our names. He knew who we were going to be. He knew what we were meant to be. He knew every mistake that we were ever going to make. Right? He knew every sin that we were ever going to commit against him and against each other. So, knowing all that, he still willingly gave his life in order to forgive us of our sins. So that way we can be able to move forward in life with forgiveness and discover bigger purpose. So it got me thinking, are we really ready to forgive? Are we ready to take on the responsibility of forgiving? Because like I said, when you forgive somebody, you're not excusing what they did. The problem that I see that comes along with forgiveness sometimes is we forgive people who don't deserve it. And let's be honest, a lot of people don't deserve forgiveness, but sometimes we give forgiveness to people who don't deserve it in the sense that we don't know whether or not they're going to be able to make the change. So I think forgiveness is a two-way street, right? In order to forgive somebody, you need to be able to trust that they're going to be able to do the right thing and avoid the sin again. Maybe not for ourselves, maybe for them. So again, like Jesus says in the Bible, you are to forgive. So if you think about it, it's not about doing it for anybody else, it's doing it for yourself, so that way you can sit here and pass along a blessing and grace that was given to you. God called us to be givers. God called us to be in his image. God called us to live in his character, right? So if God and Jesus, if God sent his only son to die for us, and if Jesus as the son was willing to lay down his life for us, then shouldn't we be able to look somebody who did us wrong and be able to say, you know what, I forgive you because this is what Jesus did for me and this is what God did for me and this is the right thing to do, right? But like I always say, sometimes we get so caught up in our own feelings and sometimes we get so caught up in our own negative emotions that we can't look past that perspective of hurt. Pastor Michael Todd from Transformation Church, in his series, in one of the videos, it's like a 10-week series. I'm like 5 weeks in. I've been binge watching it all crazy because I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to learn about this. But in one of his videos, he talks about the perspective. Sometimes we are born with a perspective of what life is like. We have a bigger frame of what life is supposed to be like. But when we get hurt, that perspective starts to get smaller, right? So instead of looking at everything from a wider perspective, we start focusing in on that one thing. And that's the focal point of everything that we do. And that's the focal point of everything that we believe in, just because of that instance. And the one thing that he said that I felt was, pain is an emotion that's caused from an event. And the event, in essence, is the offense to the pain. How many of us look at ourselves and say, you know what, we are what we did? How many of us hold on to our own actions that cause the pain and live life thinking that we are less than because of what we did? I know I have. Even right now, sometimes I do. But I can't live like that. And neither can you. We have to be able to look at ourselves, and we have to be able to accept the fact that we are human, the same way that we would want somebody else to look at us and accept us for being human and being able to make mistakes, because, like Jesus said on the cross, Lord, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they do. Maybe sometimes we did something and didn't have the right guidance to know any better. Maybe we didn't know that what we were doing was going to have a long-term effect on somebody, because we were just so caught up in the moment and we didn't see outside of that smaller perspective to see the bigger picture. How many of us make that mistake? How many of us can sit here and say, I knew what I was doing. I knew what was going to happen. How many of us can sit here and say, I didn't realize, or that's not what I meant to happen. That's not what my intention was. We have to be able to look at ourselves wholly, purely, 100%, the good, the bad, the ugly, and accept that I'm human. Your choices don't define you. Your choice was an event in your life that caused the offense, but your choice doesn't define you, because the same way that choice can cause an offense, the choice that you make can also cause forgiveness. A choice that you make can also cause grace for somebody else. The choice that you make can also be a blessing to somebody else. So your choice doesn't define you. It's the intent behind the choice. Sometimes I can sit here and make a mistake, and I can offend somebody, and I can hurt somebody's feelings, and I can tell somebody they're not going to grow up to be anything. I can tell somebody that they're annoying, that they're a liar, that, you can't do anything right. You can't, why can't you just do what you're told? And not really understand at the moment that that's going to sit with somebody. It was out of frustration, right? But if I can sit and take that event, take the action of saying those words, and then counteract it with apology, with sincerity, with knowledge, with wisdom, to say, I understand how my actions could have caused your reaction. I understand how what I did can cause you to feel the way that you do. I can understand how me telling you that you're a liar will make you feel and believe that you are incapable of being truthful and being honest. Or can make you feel like you're afraid to be honest. Or make you feel like you have to lie in order to avoid a consequence that comes with your action. If I can tell you now and sit here and say, you know what, I understand. I get that cause and effect, me making the choice that I did caused you to feel the way that you did and to cause you to act the way that you did as well, if I can sit here and say, I understand that. And I truly 100% from the bottom of my heart acknowledge you and acknowledge your feelings. And if I could tell you right now that I apologize from the bottom of my heart because I never meant for you to hurt the way that you hurt now. I was going through things in my life that I never got a chance to deal with. So maybe I was acting out of my own thoughts. Maybe I was acting out of my own frustrations that I didn't even realize were even there, and you were the one that took it. It wasn't fair to you. It wasn't fair to you. What happened to me wasn't fair to me. For me to do it to you, for me to pass that on to you, wasn't fair. And for that, I'm sorry. And I hope that you can forgive me because I want to do better. And I'm trying to do better. And I know I'm not perfect. And I know I'm going to make mistakes. And I know 100% that I'm not going to be perfect for you. And I know sometimes I'm going to fail you. But I will never stop trying. Because at the end of the day, you're worth it. How many of us can sit here and admit and own ourselves? How many of us can sit here and own up to what we did? Because it's one thing to do unto others and have it linger within them, but how many times and how often are we willing to take what we give others back? Because it's not about saying I'm sorry, and it's not about wanting to have someone forgive you. It's about literally taking responsibility for the things that you do. We need to remember something. God already forgave us. So that's something that we need to be able to accept and grasp. That concept that God already forgave us, that Jesus died on the cross for our sins in order for us to be saved by grace. We need to be able to sit here and accept that. We can't live life blaming ourselves for choices that we make when God already forgave us. But at the same time, that's not an excuse to continue doing the same thing. In order to really forgive, we need to be able to, number one, understand who we are as people, understand who we are in the eyes of God, understand the choices that were made, and understand that we were already forgiven. And the last thing that we need to be able to understand is what we do with it. We were already forgiven. What do we do with it? Are we going to continue on with that cycle of pain? Am I going to continue passing on that cycle of abuse and that cycle of pain, of not feeling like I'm anything and not feeling loved or not feeling like I have a place in this world? Am I going to continue passing that on to my kids? And then God forbid that they pass that on to their kids because that's what I was taught. That's what I taught them. So that's the only thing that they feel they have to teach to their kids. Is that what we're going to do? Or can we sit here and say, this is what I was taught. I understand that my upbringing, the person who hurt me in the past, they were already forgiven, but they chose not to live by grace. I made a mistake. I have already been forgiven. What am I going to do with that? Am I going to continue living in the same standard that I grew up with, or am I going to be able to change that? What are you going to do? You knew I was already forgiven. You knew that you are forgiven. God calls us to forgive as we have already been forgiven. So if that's what we were called to do, what are you going to do with the forgiveness that you were gifted with, that you were blessed with? Are you going to hold on to it for yourself? Or are you going to be able to forgive those that hurt you? God already forgave them. God already forgave me. God already forgave you. What do you do with it? Forgiveness is hard, man. It's not an easy concept to grasp, but the one thing that you do need to understand, and the one thing that I feel is the most important thing, is to realize and accept that you have already been forgiven. The person that hurt you has already been forgiven. What do we do with that gift? Because it's all a choice. Nobody forces you to forgive. Nobody forces you to do anything. It's a choice. So do you willingly forgive and voluntarily accept what is, and voluntarily give that gift back that was already given to you to move forward? Or do you hold on to it and put yourself in a box of anger, resentment, hatred? I tell you from my own experience, all it does is live out through you. That's all it's going to do, whether you think you can forget about it, whether you think you can outgrow it. It's going to live out through you. And unless you can have the wisdom and the understanding enough to accept it for what it is, and to willingly take the grace that was given to you and to pay it forward, all you're going to do is live a life of lies, live a life of grief. And that's the cycle that I'm trying to break. I love my kids, and I never wanted to hurt my kids. But I want to be better for them so that way they know Dad messed up, man. Dad wasn't perfect. But I know that I'm forgiven. And I hope that my kids and my wife can forgive me. But I know that I'm forgiven because I know I have value. My mistakes don't define me. My choices do. What I choose to do with my mistakes and what I choose to do with the gift of forgiveness that was already gifted to me by God and by Jesus, that defines my character. That defines your character, whoever needs to hear it. Whoever's struggling with forgiveness. You are loved. You are forgiven. You are valued. There's a way out. And as always, change the way you think, changes the way you feel, changes who you trust. You're in good hands. You always have been, you always will be. Take it easy and know you got it.